Look at correlation coefficient or the debris tracker, and there may have been a brief, looks like right there may have been just a very, very brief tornado that spun up, but I'm not seeing any indications that we have a tornado on the ground. I'm not even seeing a lot in the way of velocity, at least as far as velocity goes, for any sort of rotation. So there is a chance we had a very, very brief tornado that touched down somewhere around Vernon, and that has now moved off toward the east. The one place where it's a little bit more well-defined that we at least at one point had a tornado on the ground is here farther off toward the north, close to Hoover Mill. Looks like we got an update on that warning polygon there. Try to see if we can get the updated text on Nick, because that will tell us in the warning text whether or not the National Weather Service is still observing a tornado on radar. If there is a tornado, okay. All right, so been told we've just been live on Facebook. Hello to everybody that's watching on Facebook Live. It is 5:49 in the morning, and we're once again tracking a couple of tornado warnings out across the Florida Panhandle. We'll zoom out here, give you a little bit of a home view. There's those two tornado warnings, both of these in the Florida Panhandle, one of them including Bonifay, the other one including Vernon and Chipley. Both have radar confirmed tornadoes. I'm having a little bit of a difficult time locating the one that's down here around Vernon. That's not to say there isn't a tornado that's still on the ground. It could have been very brief, produced a little bit of damage, and then lifted as it moved off toward the east. There's nothing here on debris tracker that's really sticking out to me that would suggest we have a tornado on the ground in Vernon. However, a bit farther off toward the north, we'll take you back up here toward Hoover Mill. This little area of lowering in the correlation coefficient was a little bit more well-defined earlier. As you can see right there, it was pretty obvious we had a tornado on the ground. But as we start getting a little bit closer to time, you can see that little lowering in the debris tracker. Not as well-defined right now as it was a minute or so ago, but still, if you're in Hoover Mill, if you're in Bonifay, go ahead and get to that tornado safe place. There's been indications that we have a tornado on the ground. It's not as clear now as it was a few minutes ago, but we definitely still want to treat this like there's a tornado on the ground. It just crossed over State Highway 177A. Eventually, this continues eastward towards State Highway 177 and 79, very, very close to Hoover Mill. So again, if you live anywhere in or around Hoover Mill, along State Highway 177 or 79, around Hoover Mill, you'll definitely want to go ahead and get to that tornado safe place. Just taking a quick scroll through some of these different warning texts, it looks like we still have a radar confirmed tornado for this storm. That was at 5:48. So again, we want to assume there's still a tornado on the ground just to the south and the east of Hoover Mill. Then taking a very, very quick look at that other one farther off toward the south for Holmes and Washington County. Again, it says there's a damaging tornado as of 5:45 out around Vernon, but if we keep the tornado debris tracker pulled up, there's not really anything that sticks out to me around Vernon that would suggest that we have at least still have a tornado on the ground. There was a couple of scans a bit farther back that may probably, let's see if I can get this right where maybe here is where we may have had a very, very quick damaging tornado on the ground. It's not as well defined as the one that we have farther off toward the north. And I'm still not at the moment seeing anything that would suggest we still have a tornado on the ground anywhere around Vernon. We'll take a look at velocity. There may be just a little bit of rotation there just to the west of Walsall. Another one pretty close to Vernon, but right now just not seeing a lot that really sticks out to me. Definitely nothing that just jumps off the screen at me for a tornado warning really anywhere, even to the north of Vernon. There may be a little bit of rotation there just to the east of Highway 79, to the south of Bonifay, to the south of Interstate 10. But there's nothing here on the Doppler indicated winds that are really jumping out to me that we're dealing with any sort of tornado threat And even here farther off toward the north, obviously the rotation a little bit better defined just to the southwest of Hoover Mill, but I'm not seeing anything that is just overwhelmingly obvious that we could still have a tornado on the ground, although we continue to take a look at that correlation coefficient, the debris tracker, and it looks like we're getting yet another lowering pretty close to State Highway 177. This will be on the south side of Hoover Mill. And moving on this continues to be off toward the east at around 30 miles per hour. So again, about to head over State Highway 177 in the Florida Panhandle. If it's not there now, I would imagine it is. Then farther along the line, State Route 79, you'll be the next one under the gun. Then it looks like over where Highway 173 and 162 merge together there, that little intersection, looks like somewhere around that intersection is where this tornado eventually heads off toward, probably within the next 5 to 10 minutes. This tornado warning goes until 6 o'clock this morning. And again, we'll take you back toward reflectivity. So there's your tornado debris ball there on the debris tracker. We take this back to reflectivity. Look at all the heavy rain that's coming down out ahead of it. This is almost definitely a rain-wrapped tornado. If it is still on the ground, you will not see this tornado before it moves to the region. It is preceded by quite a bit of heavy rain. So again, if you're in either of these tornado warnings, one for Hoover Mill and Bonifay, one farther off toward the south for places like Vernon, Wausau, up toward Chipley, if you're in either of these tornado warnings, go ahead and seek out that tornado safe place if you have not already. The one area that's sticking out to me the most is this one lowering in the correlation coefficient right around Hoover Mill, and you can see the updated scan on that. Once again, not looking as well defined, but with how well it looked in that previous scan farther off toward the south and the west, we still need to go ahead and assume there's still a tornado on the ground now in between Florida State Highway 177 and 79 as this continues to move off toward the east and the northeast. We have meteorologist Ryan Duggar joining us once again. Ryan, I know you've been looking around at some of those other locations while I've been covering this here. Are you seeing anything, especially in that storm that's down around Vernon, that may indicate we have some sort of tornado on the ground?
Yeah, we're definitely checking out some of this velocity here, trying to, like you said, really see if we can really find a velocity couplet. We're seeing where some of the pixels are becoming a little bit more intense. So there could be some signs of rotation, as with this new scan right here, just a little bit north of I-10, just a little bit southwest of Chipley. This is really what I'm going to be looking out for. But if we take a look at the correlation coefficient, really not much in terms of much in the debris tracker. So we're going to be taking a look at where that velocity couplet, if it can become a little bit more evolved, as we're taking a look at that warning. So this is also a warning that's going to be expiring at 6:15, and so we're definitely going to be keeping our eye on this as it can progress a little bit farther northeast, but definitely, like you said before, we're definitely checking out that correlation coefficient just a little bit south of Hoover Mill right here, just in between State Route 79 and 177. Definitely going to be our best chance for possibly some rotation as it's heading a little bit farther northeast here. And of course, I'll be keeping my eye on a few more of those storms around. Definitely evolved pretty fast with a few of these cells, and so we're going to keep our eye on this. So if you're in areas such as Chipley, or you're just a little bit north of I-10 towards State Route 277 and towards State Route 90, let's see here, we can see a little bit more of that rotation there. If there is anything, best just be in your safe place right there. That's definitely going to be the central part of your building, in a bathroom with no windows, or for a few rare houses, if you have a basement, that's definitely going to be the best place. Also have some closed-toed shoes on as well. Maybe even grab a helmet. That's always a safe bet as we're checking out these storms and for their severity. So yeah, we're going to be definitely checking out a lot of these, a lot of this rotation and how it evolves as it progresses northeast, Zach.
All right, so while you were doing that, I was able to look around on the radar app on my phone. I believe I have found the tornado on the debris tracker that first issued that tornado warning with the tornado on the ground. I think it's going to be this little lowering in the correlation coefficient here to the north of Holmes Valley, to the west of Vernon. And as I very slowly kind of scrub this forward, you'll see this little debris ball continue to move off toward the north and the east here, to the north of Vernon, and then eventually it heads over toward Brock Crossroad. I will say in the update from that warning, we have now gone back to radar indicated, so kind of pretty similar to what I was seeing. There's not really a lot that sticks out to me along the line of where that little drop in the debris tracker was earlier. If you continue to draw that line outward, there's not really anything out here north of Wausau, north to the north and the east of Vernon, along State Highway 277. There's not really anything out there that really sticks out to me that we're still dealing with a tornado threat there. And even farther off toward the north here in this more northern storm, right around Hoover Mill, maybe just a little bit of rotation here just to the south of Hoover Mill, but really outside of that, nothing particularly alarming, and even our correlation coefficient, our debris tracker, not showing very much as well. We'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. We'll play this back to show you how this kind of evolved over the last little bit. So it looks like we first got our tornado drop down here just to the west of Hathaway Mill, and it continued to move off toward the east and the northeast over the next little bit. And every now and then you would see that debris ball really kind of flare up, and then it would kind of dissipate a little bit, then it flares up once again. And now as we've made our way toward, well, now there's no indications that we have a tornado still on the ground. So it's definitely some good news there. We did mention the potential for some of these brief spin up tornadoes. They would spin up, cause some damage to hopefully just some trees. We definitely hope that no buildings or anything like that was damaged. They would drop down, cause a little bit of damage, very quickly lift back up. And I think that's what we've had happen for both of these tornado warnings on either side of Interstate 10. I'm not seeing any indications on the debris tracker for either of these storms that we still have a tornado on the ground, which is definitely some good news, but still farther off toward the east, down Interstate 10 across the Florida Panhandle of Chipley, maybe even over toward Graceville and eventually into Mariana. Both of these storms have a history of producing some weak tornadoes, and the environment probably still more than prime enough to potentially produce a couple more of brief tornadoes. So we'll continue to kind of babysit these tornado warnings over the next little bit. Hopefully they'll be able to cancel these tornado warnings, and not really seeing any indication yet that either one of these will be extended. There's a good look at both of them on velocity. Not really anything that's sticking out to me north of Bonifay. Nothing else that's really sticking out to me to the east of Vernon. Maybe a little bit of rotation here. It's hard to say if that's an actual green pixel as far as velocity goes, or if that's a green pixel because it's showing you the ground up underneath the velocity. So things looking much calmer here on radar now for both of these cells as compared to what we were seeing over about the last 20 minutes or so. And in fact, it looks like both of these storms starting to move their way out of the polygon. So we should hopefully be just a few minutes away from taking you back to regularly scheduled programming. We'll continue to stay put, at least for right now, while we have these tornado warnings in place. Let's go ahead and let's give you a bit of a wider view now that things are starting to settle down a little bit. This is our main line of thunderstorms that we were talking about on Friday. We would get that line of thunderstorms, damaging winds, a brief spin-up tornado possible. That is it. It's now moving through the central portions of the Wiregrass right now. So if you're in Okaloosa County, if you're in Covington County, Crenshaw County, though you have not been dropped from the tornado watch yet, if you're in Troy, your severe weather threat done for the day, as well as starting to get a little bit closer to Eufaula. Then farther back off toward the south, north of Destin, out around places like Crestview and Defuniak Springs, your severe weather threat pretty much over with. Anywhere in Coffee County, your severe weather threat pretty much over with. But anywhere along and ahead of that line, you're still under a tornado watch, so conditions still favorable for the potential for tornadoes. However, I think the two bigger threats that we're going to see here, some gusty winds. There could be a couple pockets of some damaging winds. We have not seen too terribly much of that, thank goodness, since this line has entered into the Wiregrass. We had some severe thunderstorm warnings farther back off toward our west, Geneva, Conecuh and even over into Covington counties. We saw a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings, some additional ones out along the Florida Panhandle. But at least for the most part, with the exception of those 2 very brief tornado warnings, which we still have one in effect, it's that southern storm, although again, still not seeing very much that would indicate we have a tornado on the ground. For the most part, things starting to wind down once again as this line of thunderstorms continues to move off toward these. So places like Dothan, up into Ozark, Abbeville, and now starting to get into Eufaula. It'll obviously rain very heavily. There'll be frequent thunder and lightning. There'll at the very least be some gusty winds. There's not really a ton of indications that we'll have a whole bunch of damaging wind out of this, but we'll definitely see some gusty winds. And then once that line pushes through the region, we can join in with Andalusia, with Crestview, with Defuniak Springs, with Troy, back over toward Luverne and eventually over into Eufaula. We can call this severe weather threat done. There'll be a little bit of rain still coming down throughout the rest of the morning and into the early portions of the afternoon, but the main area of severe weather going to be right along and just ahead of the leading edge of that line. Looks like they have now canceled that other tornado warning. We are now tornado warning free across the Wiregrass. So we'll now take you back to regularly scheduled programming. But me, meteorologist Ryan Duggar, will continue to watch. And if in the event we get another tornado warning, we'll pop right back in and give you the latest updates. Thank you so much for watching.
This has been a forewarned weather alert.